they've selected what they've selected, and try to understand the concepts from the problems. And that's a really good way to get a better idea about the topics at hand. All right. So, Azim, you missed last class.
Yes, sir. I've been out for 2 classes. I've had some family stuff that I had to deal with, and I
Okay.
couldn't attend. I'm sorry.
So, do you plan to do some catching up?
Oh yeah, I need to work some more. I will probably do that. Yeah, I'll work on these assignments and the spreadsheet that you sent.
Yeah, the best approach is, since you miss, is to start with the problems first.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
start with the problems, and when you get stuck, go back, look at the text, go look at the concepts, and then come back to the problems.
Okay.
Problem is your key to success. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep that in mind.
Thank you.
Being able to understand, being able to act on them quickly, and learn from them, learn the concepts from the problems. So if they're focusing on a particular concept, and if you don't understand the concept, then you go back and read up on the concept, and see what that concept means.
All right. Thank you, sir.
So, Javier, did the problems help you a little bit? The ones that sent over.
I have to confess, I did not take a look at them.
Okay, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. At least
I went out of town.
that's fine. At least there's some problems that is in the email that you can look at.
Yeah. I will. I promise.
On procurement, because that seemed that was a difficult chapter. I didn't know it was. In my mind, procurement is one of my easiest chapters, but I
In
think
the book it said that the opening sentences of the first of that chapter, or at least on my version, my edition,
yeah.
it says that it's one of the most difficult. Well, it's typically the ones people do the worst.
Yeah, and I can see that. I can see if you have not gone through the full cycle. Contact is just one aspect. So the other part is this selecting of a vendor. That part is another aspect, and I think we're going to review that as soon as we get. Maybe it's 3 is my good number. So, and we got Tequila 4. Great. So we got a full team here. So I think we can get started, and I'm going to walk you through step by step about, first of all, procurement is about the vendor, really. It's all about the vendor. The whole chapter is about vendor solicitation or vendor engagement, the process of how we engage the vendor. And then once we engage the vendor, select the vendor, then we look at the contract to see what type of contract we are going to establish with the vendor. And once that is done, then we start to talk about different types of contracts. And then at the end, we just talk about, okay, what if we want to terminate the contract? What do we do? What if the vendor is not behaving? What if the vendor is not fulfilling the terms in the agreement of the contract? What do we do? Stuff like that. So there are three components. The first component is you want to buy, not build, but buy. And so in order to buy, you need to find a vendor. So I'm going to draw it out, and I may even send that PowerPoint over once I've drawn it out, and you get a clear picture of that. Then after we've gone through, we spend 30 minutes, 20 minutes on this, then we'll jump to today's topic, which is quality and cost. Quality and cost. Quality is pretty subjective. Cost has problems. So we're going to do some problems. I'm going to walk you through a set of problems, and then you can, based on that, I may even send you that PowerPoint on those problems. You should start to tackle the problems on your own. We'll do some in the class, depending on how much time we have. And then we'll take up on next Monday before we start with the new topic. So we want to make sure everybody gets an opportunity to first learn about the topic and then understand the topic before they attempt at the problem. So let's, what I need to do is, I got 5 people now. Beautiful. Letter 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. Oh, great. Who am I missing? 1, 2, 3. No, I got 6 people. 6. I knew I had 6. Takira, Latris, Olivia, Javier, Ernisha, and Azim. So we're going to do some review of procurement because that seems to be a tough chapter to crack. We're going to crack it right now. And I want to make sure you all understand as we start to delve into it. I'm going to...
Well, I have a question, Professor.
Sure.
So we have 6, 7, 8 chapters to go. If I read this right on the syllabus, you already have, well, no, not 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I don't know if...
Let's do this. Let me just take a look at. I'm going to let's walk through the syllabus first of all.
Because this week we're supposed to have budget and quality. And
that's what we're going to do.
Yeah, we lost the Monday, right?
You lost a Monday, which we'll make up for. Remember, you started off. No, it wasn't the other class. So yeah, we'll make up for the lost 3 hours. So I don't think. I don't think you should be worried. So we'll see how we can take it. We'll take care of it. No worries.
All right.
Just make sure you keep track of the chapters. Make sure we don't miss any. But we're not. As far as I'm concerned, I think we can easily catch up. Some chapters are very, very small and easy. And the one that's the most difficult, I think, is the schedule. Even though you said procurement is a difficult one, the most difficult is the schedule. So that's the only one I'm really worried about. That's
next week.
Yeah, that's next week. So, and there's a lot of stuff in there that really is not applicable, but they have put stuff in there that used to be very important in previous PMP exams, but no longer. But again, it's still there. All right, so let me show my screen here, and we do a little review. But I'm going to draw some diagrams here. That'll make it easy for you guys to understand the process. All right, so you all should see a blank screen. If you don't, that means something is wrong on your end.
Yeah, it's a blank screen.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so we're going to thank you for those thumbs up. Okay, so let's talk about procurement. Procurement, and this is going to be sort of a review. So here you are. This is you. This is the PM. And you have this question. This is who you are, and this is your boss or the sponsor. And before the sponsor even brought up this chapter, they were thinking. Not chapter. This project. They were thinking about build or buy, and they may have already decided that it's going to be a buy. And then they, when the project was initiated and the charter was conceived, one of the deliverables the sponsor said that the PM will have to work on is to engage with a solution provider. Now, there are two cases. One is when the project starts, there's already a solution provider that the sponsor and his team have already engaged, or his team being some other department have done the work and they've given you the solution provider and you just run with it. Other times, project manager comes in and the sponsor says we need to engage with a solution provider, and that's part of your scope. So I'm going to assume that the PM comes in, completes the charter, and the first phase of the project is to solicit a solution provider. We'll call that phase 1. So in phase 1, the PM is going to do the first thing, he's going to complete the charter, engage the team by sending them a request. That's normal. And once he has a team, the team's task is to work with the customer to start the sourcing engagement step, which is to engage the people who are going to help you pretty much work with the solicitation process to engage a third-party solution. So you get the sourcing engagement, you get one person from here who is going to help you with the contract, who can help you sending out the proposals to the respective solution providers which are out there, and then help your team through the process of actually selecting a vendor. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to meet with the sourcing and ask the sourcing to give me a schedule of the work that sourcing is going to help us complete to engage a vendor. Sourcing will say, fine, I'm going to give you a schedule of how this is going to work. But first, you got to give me at least two things. And I asked, what are those two things? The first is give me a list of all the potential solution providers or vendors. And I'll say, okay, we're looking for IBM as one candidate, Apple as another one, and we're looking for Microsoft as another solution provider. But we don't know which one to pick, and that's the task that is going to be engaged for the next 3 months. Let's say we're going to say the sourcing person is going to say it's going to take 3 months to engage these vendors and come up and potentially we'll get to a point where we'll pick one. All right, great. So what's the other thing, other item that you want sourcing person? And he or she is going to say, I want the requirements. All right, so what we're going to do the first week or so is my team is going to meet with the customer and gather the requirements. So we're going to spend some time gathering requirements of whatever the solution we are intending on engaging, for this particular project. So we got the requirements done. I handed over the requirement document to the sourcing person, and I gave him a list of potential vendors. And sourcing person is going to put together a package for the RFP process. And sourcing is going to put any terms, any conditions that they would like these potential vendors to read up on and provide to us in response to this RFP. All of that information will be in this RFP process package. So it'll be a sort of a package, a mail out that the sourcing department is going to put together. It would have the requirements, it would have some terms, initial terms, give me some background information about the vendor, their financial position, the size of the company, and response of this, this proposal in certain format, so we can understand their responses in a manner that would help us score them. So we'll give them a list and they will fill in the blanks, these three vendors, and send us back within, let's say, 2 weeks. So that's the schedule that sourcing is going to provide us, that we're going to send the package out to these three vendors. We'll give them 2 weeks to complete the package, give us their response to whether they can meet those requirements or not. And so the form which took the shape of a requirement, they're going to go in and say, yes, we're going to meet this requirement. No, we're not going to. If they say yes, they will provide some additional detail and maybe some supplementary information, so that once the response from this proposal comes back, which would take the shape of a scope of work, SOW. So that would be the response, let's say, that we're going to get back from Apple, Microsoft, and IBM, response to the request we made to them, asking for a solution to our problem, and to update them on what our problem is. We gave them the requirements. So they're reading up the requirements and sending back a proposal. The proposals come back in after 2 weeks. And sourcing is going to put them in folders, 3 folders, and open it up to the team, the customer and the IT team, who then start to look at that and evaluate them. So number 5 would be the evaluation. And so this is what we call, we're going to conduct not the engagement, but here we're actually doing the work. So it's almost like the execution of the response from the vendors. So we are as part of the execution, we are evaluating them, and we have some questions that we are saying we need to ask the potential vendors. So in order to do that, to face these vendors in some sort of format, we are going to have a bidders conference. So bidders conference is where we're going to meet with them and ask our questions, and we'll open up the floor for them to ask us questions about the RFP. We have their response from the 3 vendors. We have some questions, they have our requirements, and they have some questions. So this exchange happens in this bidders conference. It could be a virtual meeting. These 3 vendors are there, we are there, and we are meeting each other, and we're asking questions back and forth. Once that is done, we start the scoring process. We being the team who's responsible to engage these vendors and select one, we are going to score them based on their responses to our requirements. And there's many scoring methodologies that are used. We can weigh a particular question on the requirements and give them a higher weight than the other question and score accordingly. So whatever the scoring method we're going to use, sourcing team is going to sort of help us with that. And so we are going to grade them. So this is the grading part. We're going to grade them and give them a grade. It could be a number, it could be a letter. So let's say we're getting them A, B, and C. So we have 3 vendors, and IBM gets an A grade, Apple gets a B grade, and Microsoft gets a C grade. So once that's done, we're going to, before we select IBM, we're going to tell all 3 of them, because the only 3 of them, come in and do a demo of your solution, whatever the solution they are going to present to us for this engagement. So they're going to come in, they're going to present us with the solution, and we're going to then finalize on selecting our ultimate or final vendor. So after the demo is over, they go back, we look at the scoring, we look at the demo, we look at the bidders conference Q&A, we decide that we really are going to go with IBM. So we go with IBM, we select them, and sourcing is going to send them a selection letter telling them that you have been selected. Let's begin the contractual process. So the next process would be to engage with the vendor and start to complete the contract. Now, the scope of work that they gave us, initially, they're going to finalize on the scope of work, which would be part of the contract. They're going to look at the terms that are in the contract, and they will look at the price that they're going to agree upon, and there will be some back and forth with legal and our legal and their legal until the contract has been finalized and it's in an executable manner, executable form, which is basically a signed document. Now, the scope of work contains the requirements, it contains the scope statement, it contains the schedule, it contains the plan, which is bottom line, the schedule. So now they're ready to deploy based on a particular kickoff time frame. So that's the part that is where we put a package together, send it over, evaluate, and then select. So that's That's the part that's like 3 to 6 months, let's say. That was phase one of the project. Project ended, we got a solution provider, and now we're going to actually go through initiation. Initiation will be really fast because the charter has been done. We're just going to go through initiation really fast and then go into planning. Planning 50% or almost 75% of the planning has already been completed because we have a scope of work from the vendor. 25% of maybe less than 25%, there is not a whole lot of planning done because they've given us the solution, how they're going to deploy it. They just need our team to work with them. So this planning part is going to take much less. The critical part would be to get an agreement on the schedule. Their schedule and our schedule. So we look at their plan, which would be in the schedule, and we are going to review that and finalize the schedule, and move the project from planning into execution. And in this phase, we're going to procure any equipment if we need to procure, and start to build the solution. Now, the build part for a vendor is going to be, relatively speaking, would take less time because they already have a solution. We just want to configure it, tweak it, right? Because we already have a solution. We just want to deploy it. But before we deploy it, they will look at every feature that they're going to provide to us and compare that against the requirement, make sure everything is there, there's nothing missing. They will they'll do a configuration and a review with the vendor and make sure they validate everything that they're providing us and that they get a go, no go. And they are going to test out the solution also in the test environment before they move everything into production environment and go live. So the critical step of building and testing will enable them to get the solution ready for prime time. I'm going to stop right here and open up the floor for questions.
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Where is the sourcing person comes from? Is it a person from our team?
Okay, good question. So our team is going to consist of the customer, the vendor, and the IT people, right? Sourcing would be another department that will engage, and sourcing is another person that works with the procurement and legal and procurement. They kind of work as a team. Mainly because of the contract, and contract is a legal document, so a lawyer would be engaged, and they are the ones who take care of this responsibility, the sourcing person. So it'd be an external, another department who we would engage to actually onboard the new vendor. And so this is the process that we sort of will walk through with them. So they'll become part of our team temporarily until we have the contract signed off. And once the contract is signed, sourcing folks go away, the legal go away, and then the regular team starts to take over and move forward.
So basically, everything starting from point one, the general job is done by sourcing, right? Because their job is to find who is the proper vendor. And so everything you listed here from step 1 to step, I think it's supposed to be 8, 9, then it goes 7, 8, 9 again. For some reason, maybe you made a mistake.
Oh yeah. So let's say 7, 8. Let's make that. This is 9 here,
9,
and make
then 10 and 11, right? So all these steps are basically done by the sourcing, right? Because he only makes, because this is a process of making decision who is the final vendor, right?
Okay, so let's see who's doing what. So the step number 1, where I say list vendors, is the sourcing is going to ask the team who do you prefer to go through the process of selection. Who are your favorite vendors? So sourcing is going to ask the team and the customer, who should we engage with? And so I will give the sourcing person, anywhere from 3 to 15 names of solution providers. In this case, I've given them three providers, solution providers: IBM, Apple, and Microsoft. So it's sort of, we're going to go through these 11 steps sort of collaboratively. So the first step is sourcing asking that who should I send this RFP package to? So that we'll tell them you can send this RFP package, request for proposal package, to IBM, Apple, and Microsoft. Next question sourcing is going to ask is the requirements. I need the requirements to send in, to add them to the package and send it to the vendor, so vendor can read the requirements and then respond accordingly. The requirements are going to come from the team. So prior to engaging with sourcing, I need to make sure I have the requirements. If I don't, then this step will take a couple of weeks, where I will go to the customer and gather the requirements, I being the team, and then we'll give it to the sourcing person. Here are my requirements, and add it to the RFP proposal and send it out. See that there's a collaborative. They are the ones who are mailing out the stuff. They are responsible to interact with the vendors until the contract has been signed. Once the contract has been signed, then we can officially speak with the selected vendor, the final vendor. But prior to that, all vendor interactions, emailing, coming back and forth, are handled by the sourcing person. The team doesn't participate in any of that. All they do is they are going to score, they're going to grade, they're going to participate in the demos, they're going to select the final vendor, and then they'll wait until the contract part is done, and sourcing is going to handle that with the legal. And then once the contract part is done, we'll get the contract, and then we'll work with the vendor, and sourcing and legal are going to leave.
Got it.
Okay, so yeah, it is a collaborative sort of engagement here with the sourcing, but they are sort of the lead, and they are guiding us, and they're telling us, what we should do during this process. At what time should we do the scoring? At what time should we be grading? When? And they're going to schedule the demos, and we're just going to attend that meeting. And that bidders conference number 6, they're going to schedule. Sourcing is going to schedule the bidders conference. We are just going to be a invitee to that bidders conference, and then and in that conference we're going to meet with the vendors and go through our Q&A. Any other question from any other team folks here? So this is the part that should give you the first step of procurement is this part, where you select a solution provider and complete the contract. The next part is, after you have the contract, the part of actually what type of contract, all of that is done by the legal people. You're not involved, whether it's to be a fixed price or cost reimbursable or time and material. The legal with the sourcing are going to be responsible for that. They may ask you, but they are experts in picking up the right type of contract and moving forward with it. I think a lot of it depends upon the company policy. And so, the sourcing people know that fixed price has the lowest risk for us, for the company. So they more than likely will go with fixed price. But then it all also depends on what type of contract or what type of work we're going to be involved with. Go ahead, Azim.
When the execution process, or when the planning process will be started, will we as a team have scope statement document, or is it going to be a scope statement document only for vendor? Will they give us any documents?
Okay, a good question. So, the package that the vendor, remember, the vendor was supposed to respond back to the package that the sourcing sent to them.
Yes.
So, the response that the vendor is going to provide will be the SOW, scope of work, and it'll be a complete document. You can call that a planning document. It will have the schedule. It will have how you're going to bill us. The billing part is going to have the contract, obviously, and it's going to have what should you do if the vendor is not completing the job. How would you escalate to the management? So it'll have a whole bunch of stuff to facilitate the implementation of the solution. But the most important item that the IT team is looking for is the schedule and the specifications, requirements. What hardware do I need? What software do I need? And and also user guides, materials, and the schedule. All of that stuff is in the package and in the contract that the team would be reviewing as they are trying to unfold and get ready for initiation, which would be quickly done, planning, which relatively would be also quickly done. Then the phase that would be most important would be execution. How are we going to actually deploy the solution, given that we have all this documentation from the vendor? The vendor is going to obviously almost hold your hand through this process. The vendor is going to support you, is going to help you with the deployment because you're paying the vendor to help you with the deployment. Which is not to say that IT team is not going to be playing a major role. The PM is going to be overseeing everything, making sure things get done. All the stuff that we talked about that happens in a typical project would be done here. But the majority of the build part, the test part, would be taken over by the vendor, but they will collaborate with our internal IT to also make sure that the stuff that they need from the IT is also included and overseen by the whole team. All right. Yep. That's the whole thing. That's procurement right here. What you see. Now, what we focused on last week was primarily I went through the first 9 steps relatively quickly, and then we jumped on the contracts, right? So I don't know if you got now that we've gone through sort of from the baseline. Hope this was clear to you. All in all, what is procurement? The contract piece, a little bit of it. Rest is all the steps you go through to actually engage a third-party solution so that you can actually start a contract, start the project and complete it with 3 teams: the vendor team, the IT team, and the customer team. The sourcing team, which includes the lawyers and the sourcing person, they are going to be with you first 3-4 months, and then they leave, and then your project is going to start from that point forward with those 3 teams. Is that clear to everyone? If so, I want to see thumbs up. If there's a question, let me know, and I can go over some of these steps again. All right. So looks like I see a lot of thumbs up. So so hopefully that would help you with your questions as you review and try to work them on your time. And then if you still have questions or issues about some of the questions, just bring them to my notice and we can go over those with you. All right. So I'm going to stop this. All of this is in the books, by the way. So if you read a few chapters of this topic, you should sort of now, if you go back and reread them, it'll make more sense to you. Okay, so let's start on the work that's cut out for today. Okay, so stop this. By the way, I loaded the file like an hour ago. So if you have not had a chance to download it, you can download the PowerPoint for.
We got the email notifications, both the PowerPoint and the.
Yeah, but
spreadsheet.
but the one for this week is I just uploaded.
Yeah. It already came in.
Oh, okay.
Like you did it at the very beginning of the class, right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it came in right away.
Okay. For some
Actually,
reason.
it did to me anyway.
Okay, that's good. I'm trying to see what's going on.
It's in Canvas.
Yeah. So just give me a second here. I'm going there myself. Let me log out here. Okay, CTTT. There you go. Quality and cost. So I'm downloading that file also. All right, so let's just display my screen. I always review this before we actually get to the topic at hand. And this is just a quick overview of what is left for us to do. What have we done thus far? So we have gone through stakeholder chapter. We've gone through the resource chapter. We've gone through the scope chapter, and we've gone through the procurement chapter. These 4 chapters we have done. Today we're going to go through the quality chapter, and we're going to go through the cost chapter. These 2. And then we'll be left with risk. Risk is an easy chapter, so I think I've combined risk with schedule. Schedule is after procurement is the next chapter in terms of difficulty, and then the final, and then what we're going to do is communication would be our last chapter. What I'm going to add to that is a chapter on leadership as well. So leadership and communication will sort of go together. That's where we are, and let's talk about quality first. All right. So high level quality. We're going to talk about the process first. Anytime we look at any of these knowledge areas, we always talk about planning. We got to plan it out. How are we going to plan the quality management or quality in the project? And so that's the first step. Plan the quality. How are you going to actually come up with quality metrics? If you're starting a project and you want to deploy or build a house, for example, you're always thinking of the quality of material, right? Material and the skill of the contractors. So you want to get the best contractors who can build a house for you. And then you're also looking for the best materials that you can procure given the budget you have. So it all depends on the budget, right? So budget sort of drives the quality in some sense. But whatever you decide to, in terms of quality, whatever you decide initially, and all of that, all the decision making is included, is added into the requirement documents. In the requirement, you're stating what I want and at what quality do I want. Not only just the material and the workmanship, but also you're looking at the long term outcome of that, not just the short term outcome, the long term, because you want the quality should extend the life of the product a certain number of years. So all of those inputs go into your quality metrics. So once you decide by meeting with these stakeholders, and so there would be a lot of data gathering as you're trying to figure out what quality you're looking for in your product, right? So there'll be some data gathering, data analysis as you're planning it out, and then you are going to think about how am I going to test and inspect to make sure that the vendor or the builders have built my product according to my quality requirements. So you're thinking about those things in as part of the plan. We need to test what we build. We should, as part of testing, we should inspect what we build once we know what our expectations are. So that's all in the planning for the quality of this project. So quality metrics is really the outcome from this quality planning. What are my quality metrics? What am I looking for in terms of quality? And we'll talk about this a little bit more tangibly as we talk about that today. So this keep it planning is all about how I'm going to, what it is, and then how I'm going to actually test and validate. Test and validate. Those are two main ways you can actually be assured that whatever the builders have built is going to meet my requirements. So testing is a critical component of that, and validation is a critical component of that. Or keeping those two things in mind, we'll say, okay, now that we have sort of planned out the quality, how are we going to manage? Manage means, how we're going to actually do the testing, the how part. How are we actually going to do it? And so you again, there's a lot of data that you're going to have to gather as you're building, right? As you're building, you're gathering data, which is informing you whether you're building it correctly or not. So there's a lot of data gathering, data analysis, decision making. These are tools that you may be using as far as in terms of managing the quality of the product. And then you are probably showing or displaying the data by representing it by graphically or some other means to see, based on the graphical representations, I can actually make decisions or make it meaningful for folks to see and decide whether we are meeting all our requirements or not. So there's a lot of problem solving going on here as part of that. The outcome of this is that we're getting test results. That's sort of the main outcome of that. You're building the product, you're looking at the quality, and you're testing to make sure you're meeting the requirements, and then the final outcome is your test results. So as a project manager, when I look at the product which the team is building, I leave them alone. And then they build the product, then they showcase it to the customer, and the customer says, "Yep, looks good. Why don't you make a few changes?" They come in, they make some changes, and when the build looks good, the team goes into the test mode. They go in and start testing every single item that they have built, and at that point, I leave them alone again. The building, customer intervention happens. Customer says, "Okay, fine, looks good. The design looks good, and now you build it. I'm satisfied, except for a few things." And now they're testing to sort of verifying that what they build is not going to fall apart. The PM is observing, making sure they're following the rules. The deliverable that I'm really wanting to receive from them as a result of all this is the test results, and that's what the PM is really trying to look at, trying to convince himself that if the test result says everything passed based on the test that they conducted on the product, and everything looks green, there's no yellow or reds, then that is the proof I need. So in case something does go wrong, and I'm asked, did you test it? I say, yes, the team tested it. I have the results. Here they are. So this is the verification part, where you test and verify that whatever you're building, an iPhone, a house, a rocket, or a swimming pool, or whatever the case may be, that the test results is what I'm looking for, is what is going to prove to me and to the customer and to the stakeholders that it's working. Now, the important question here is, what am I testing? Right? So the building part, obviously, they should know how to build based on the design. The design was in the planning phase. In the planning phase, they were gathering the requirements, looking at the risk analysis, doing the risk analysis. They were doing the scope statement, and they were creating the schedule. And from the schedule, they were designing a solution. They were engaging a third party for a solution. So they did all that. They have a design. Once they go into execution, that's where quality really gets into play. In the planning, they have this quality metrics, which is right here. All of this happened in the planning. So this happened in the planning phase. This managing quality and controlling quality is happening in the execution phase, where they're actually building, testing, and as part of testing, they're verifying, and then somebody's controlling. And controlling is making sure that you stay within your constraints of the product. If the product has constraints, if you are manning some metrics, you stay within those metrics, your specifications basically. Don't gold plate. Just stay within the scope, stay within the specifications, stay within the quality metrics. And case in point, as an example would be an iPhone, right? The iPhone can be you could have many quality levels to this, So they have come up with a quality metric for the iPhone, and as part of controlling that, and controlling happens while they build. So you build and you control, right? As you're building, you're verifying by testing, and then the final validation happens as part of this process is when you bring in the customer and ask the customer to validate. So changes are happening. There are change requests that may come up as you are building, testing. You're tweaking it and you're changing things. And especially in agile, there's a lot of change happening, and that's perfectly fine. If it happens in the predictive methodology, changes are happening, and they are not happening as much because every change requires an evaluation, right? An impact analysis, right? You got to make sure the change that CR, if it gets brought up, you got to do an impact analysis of time, scope, and cost, and make sure that you stay within that. And you're staying within this triangle, but you're also staying within the queue. The queue is within the triangle. The quality is within that triangle. So the quality metric, you stay within the scope, you stay within the time frame, you stay within the cost, based on the quality that was specified in the planning phase. All right? Any questions thus far? Okay, so let's move on and do a deep dive of this. Okay, so let's move this here. So this is what we are going to focus on in this chapter. These are the 19 points. So what I'm also doing now is, if you look at the start of every chapter, there is a let's look at this chapter now. We're looking at the quality, right? So I'm going to the quality chapter right now while I'm talking about it, so we all can be on the same page. I want to show you something here. What page is quality? Let's see. If anybody is doing that, let me know so that I can get to it faster. But I'm looking for it myself here. Quality. Yeah, I found it. It's page 249. So these 19 points are on page 249. Every chapter has a quick test. This is the quick test. So whatever is in the quick test is what I'm going to be covering in the class. Now I may not cover, if I miss some of these concepts, you can bring those to my attention, but I will try to cover as many of these as possible. And this is a good way for you to also do a quick check whether you know these concepts or not, right? So this is a good way to do that. So we're going to do these 19 steps hopefully today. Well, they're 19 and 19. They're actually more than 19. They're 38. 19 on this side and 19 on this side. So in all, there were 38 concepts. All right. So we talked about planning. It has three steps. We plan, we manage, which is in execution, and we control in execution. That's pretty straightforward. On page 253, you will find that drawn out. There is a figure 10.2. Look at that if you want some clarity on the actual process, but I'm going to draw it out here. So it's just as a review. This is your initiation. Let's say this is your initiation is right here. This is your initiation. You go into planning. You get your quality metric defined. Quality metric defined. You find out your requirements. From the requirements, you build your scope statement. You build your do your risk analysis. Do your budgeting, cost budgeting, and then you create your schedule. Come up with a design, the blueprint. You take the design and your schedule. You go into execution. Your quality metrics are also here. Your quality metrics should be in your design. So you do your execution, and then you start to build. As you're building, you are testing, and that completes your verification. During this build and test, whether it's agile or not, you are showcasing this build process to your customer. And then once you're done with the build process and you are ready to go live, there's a step here called validation. I'm going to say V, and this customer is going to come here and test drive it. You're going to sign off. Then you're going to move this into production or go live. So quality is verified here. Quality is validated here. Verifying usually happens by the team. Validation happens by the customer. And then once that's done, you can do your go, no go, and move the product into production, and then go live, and then close the project at the end right here. All right, and that sort of is what they've explained on page 253, figure 10.2. Figure 10.2, page 253. So they've given you a slightly different workflow, but that's really what it boils down to. All right, so moving on to our next concept here. again, we are going to go sort of step by step. Plan quality and the inputs. These are the inputs: scope baseline, schedule baseline, cost baseline, risk register. So let's go back up here. And what you get out of is quality management plan, quality metrics, and a checklist. A list of items to be checked, a list of process to be followed, results can be noted. So this checklist is almost is your test cases. Is your test cases that you're going to be testing as you build your product. These baselines really are almost like you know when you do your schedule, you get a schedule baseline. When you complete your scope, you get a scope baseline. When you complete your budget, you get a budget baseline. So it's almost like you get everything ready, then you start to think about the quality. It's almost like when you are looking at an iPhone, you talk about your requirements, what you want in your iPhone. You talk about how long it's going to take to complete the iPhone, and then you're going to talk about the cost of making the iPhone. You'll also then talk about the quality before you actually build the iPhone, right? So quality is a component that is part of your planning, and it's a critical component before you actually finalize your design. So design really, design is sort of what comes out of this, the design, and then this design is what you build upon, right? Design is your blueprint. Design is your blueprint. Okay, so that's I think that's all it's trying to reflect here. Definition of quality is very, very important. How you define quality. So the definition, official definition, is it's the degree to which a project and the components of its product fulfill requirements. Fulfill requirements. Key. This is very critical. Nothing more, nothing less. So when you're doing your testing to verify, you're testing against the requirements. When the customer is validating the product, the customer is validating against the requirements. So requirements are the key to measuring your quality. And usually quality, it says plan in the quality. Should we plan in the quality or should you just inspect? Which is preferred, one or two? Plan in the quality or inspect the quality of the product? Which one is better? Planning in the plan. So planning in the quality is better. That means everything you do it with highest quality. Everything you do. So then your process has the quality part of the process is already there. It's already built in. Rather than you put it together, or you build it, and then you verify. Even that's also normal. But this is the best way. In a factory, for example, in a bottling factory or any kind of factory, they put all the quality components in the process, so you don't have to worry about it. Everything comes out okay because everything is done with highest quality, right? So that's what they mean by this. The okay, quality plan. Yeah, these two concepts are quality assurance means validation. Quality control means verification, which is also equivalent to testing. Validation is equivalent to auditing. So if you are validating something with the customer, most likely you are sort of auditing and making sure you're meeting the requirements. Spec sheets, specifications are the input to the quality plan. So before the spec sheet, you have the requirements, right? requirements. From the requirements, you get the specification sheets. And as you're putting together your quality plan, you are going to look at those spec sheets to see if the spec sheets meet your quality requirements, your quality metrics. So, so see this requirements. They're going to come down here. So this requirement really scope. So this is really what this is. And once you have again, even the WBS requirements is the key driver to everything. Key driver to the scope, WBS, and then it all comes down to the spec sheet, quality plan, QA, QC, and that's it. All right. Moving on. In an adaptive or agile environment, nothing is different because quality obviously is going to be the same for both. You're going to verify or inspect. So that's not going to change whether you have an agile methodology or adaptive methodology. You're building, right? You're building a product, and as you're building, you're testing. And so you're verifying, you're inspecting. Inspecting is usually done in the case of, let's say, construction. In a construction type project, you are inspecting. This is an example, though. In verification is done in a software type project, software, where you are actually verifying by testing. And how are you testing? You're testing using what we call test cases. And test cases come out of test scenarios. You have test scenarios. Let's come up with a scenario to test this bicycle. What are we going to be testing once we put a bicycle together? What scenarios are we going to be testing? We can, from the scenarios, we can create our test cases. Test case 1, test case 2. We're going to check the front of the bicycle. We're going to check the back of the bicycle. We're going to check the brakes. We're going to check the pedals. We're going to check the rims. We can check the seats. So those are our test cases. Each component of the bicycle can be called as one test case, and the team is going to test every one of them and come up with test results, because you're going to test every one of them and say that they passed or they failed. And that's what this is about. In Agile, we don't call requirements, we call them user story. So user story will be the basis for our testing. User stories. Did we meet the user story or not? And that's what we'll be bouncing the results against. That'll be our baseline requirements in the case of an agile environment. Quality defects are fixed during daily stand-ups and retrospectives. So in an agile world, they have daily stand-up meetings, right? They have 15-minute meetings. That's where they can ask a question about quality. They can look at the task and they can verify as part of that 15-minute stand-up meeting. And also to improve the process, finally, when things are done, they can review the end result in a retrospective meeting, which happens after you have completed the product and showcased it to the customer in a sprint review meeting. So let's review this, so folks who have forgotten this. So in Agile, you have the sprint planning, where you plan the sprint. Once you start the build process, the test process, you are going to, as part of monitoring and controlling, you're going to show it to the customer in a sprint review meeting. Once you've done that, got an approval, then you're going to have a final meeting called retrospective. And then you're going to close the sprint. Whatever you learn from retrospective, you're going to try to improve your next sprint from that learning. So 3 meetings: planning meeting, sprint planning, sprint review, and retrospectives are the 3 main, and daily stand-ups. So you're doing your daily stand-ups right here, right here, stand-up, or daily scrums, as what they call it. You are going to, just like in predictive, you're going to decompose your user story now, not your WBS. In an agile, you still have to decompose your user story into its respective tasks and work on them. In a waterfall or predictive, you're going to do a decomposition of your WBS or your secret sauce. What else? So let's just introduce a new word here. So we said we have waterfall, we have predictive. On this side, we have agile, and we have this new word is adaptive. So if you come across adaptive, that is also same as an agile methodology. Predictive, waterfall goes together. Sometimes they may use other terms too. There's a word that I'm coming across is called change. So change type. But I would go with stick with these 2 here and these 2 here for now. Any question here between the 2?
No, sir.
All right, let's keep going. Grade. So grade is another concept to keep your eye on. The grade. What do we mean by grade? So the definition of grade, according to the book, is that it refers to classification of a product. For example, the strength of concrete. So grade has to do with classification. So an example here is strength of concrete. So that's what grade means. Classifying a product by looking at its grade. Not project grade, but the grade of the product. What grade is this product? And that is a classification. You can have many grades of concrete, right? You have many grades of different products. And so you pick your own grade and then you stick with that grade. And that's how you can also measure whether it met the quality metrics or not by, but did it meet the grade? All right. We did cover that. Gold plating. Gold plating, we all know what that means. Only provide what's necessary and no more. Gold plating is when you add additional features that were not required, but it made it work best, or like your extra bells and whistles. Don't need to add bells and whistles if the customer didn't approve of those, right? So if the customer wants you to build a garage, don't build a palace. and it's the responsibility of the PM to make sure that the team only does what they're told to do and not more. Less, obviously, they can do, but they shouldn't do more either. So prevention or inspection? Which is better, prevention or inspection? Who can tell me?
Prevention.
Prevention, right? You want to make sure that bad things don't happen, and so you prepare. You prepare before you execute, before you actually do it. You prepare. You plan. Inspect after you've done some work. Then you inspect. So cost of conformance. If you do things right, you do your training, you do your equipment analysis, document processing, time, you take extra time to make sure things are done right. Those are your cost to do it right. And what's the cost of not doing it right? You have to scrap it or do rework, right? If you don't follow the rules, that you'll have a cost, right, to bear, and that's called cost of non-conformance, not following the rules. And mostly in project world, we use the word rework a lot. Rework. We don't like rework because rework is going to cost you extra dollars, extra money. So all of these things are to prevent us from that. So just make sure you understand what do we mean by cost of conformance and cost of non-conformance. The concept of Kaizen, Kaizen, Kaizen really means continuous improvement. And sometimes Kaizen is also referred in terms of projects. So they're small projects, Kaizen projects. Small teams work on these, but also they are also referred to in terms of continuous improvement. So keep that in mind. Just in time is as you need it. If you want to build a laptop, you pick up the phone, you place an order, they take your order, then they build it. They don't build it until they hear from you, just in time. So if that comes up, you'd know what that means. Six Sigma, variance from the mean. So this is what Six Sigma comes from. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have 6, 9.999. That the accuracy. It has to do with your accuracy. Six Sigma. I want something. I want a Six Sigma quality product. We are a Six Sigma factory. Why? Because we are very precise, very accurate to 6 decimals. To 6 decimals. In managing quality, the PM is also trying to improve the work processes as part of quality management. So as you have quality requirements, quality metrics, but so as part of that, you're continually improving, right? Because TQM, total quality management, means you're continuously looking at the project processes and then suggesting changes to improve them. You're not just sitting and just watching them do the work. You're also seeing how best they can do it, how they can improve the work, right? You're also looking at the total continuous improvement, Kaizen methodology. You're trying to employ that in your projects. So an example of quality metrics could be, how many times you are having changes or you're having bugs, defects. How many workarounds are you doing? All of those point to quality. If you're having less bugs, less workarounds, people are showing up when they're supposed to show up on time, all of that. So that means you are meeting all the quality requirements of your product. So that discussion has to happen in the planning meeting when you are first, after you initiate the project, complete the charter, do your kickoff. And as you're gathering requirements from the customer, you're also talking to the customer about the quality. Especially when you're upgrading, let's say, the house. What sort of kitchen should I have? What quality material should we get? And workmanship. Sometimes when you look at somebody's workmanship and you say, it's not done well. The quality of their work was poor. I'm not going to ask this person to come back again from a next job, right? It's all about that. So managing. So a few words here about managing. Are procedures and policies being followed? So these are some of the signs of the fact that you are doing a good quality job, increasing efficiency, improving the processes? Are you meeting the design? Are we testing? And are we finally validating with the customer? So this is the how of quality, which I talked about earlier. All right, let's keep moving. Are we meeting the quality as defined in the project quality plan? So, well, how do we know? We inspect, we test. So this is quality control, which is testing, quality assurance, which is validation, and total quality management is testing plus validation, both of them. Quality means measure, right? Everything about quality is measurement. So you're measuring the quality by something, by some means, and so you're coming up with quality metrics, and to come up with those metrics, you are going to gather data, and the data is going to come from the team, and team is going to do some brainstorming to come up with ideas. You're going to interview people. You're going to look at some benchmarks from your another institution, from your fellow vendors and other documentation, other sources to compare against what you are building. So if you're building a product, you're comparing the product's quality with maybe your competitor. Is my iPhone as good as my vendor's iPhone? Or whatever product they're selling. So these are the ways by which you start to come up with quality metrics. How do I come up with these metrics? You gotta go out, gather data, brainstorm, check, benchmark until you are able to get data, which then you're going to use to measure the quality of your product. All right, so data. We talked about data. Data is so important. So one thing I may have told you before is that data has to be transformed into information, right? Data by itself doesn't help you much. I could have a lot of data, but if I cannot make sense of it, if it's meaningless, then data is useless. Unless you transform the data into information by doing some analysis, then you can just like interpretation. When you hear language, if somebody's speaking Chinese, you hear words, that's data, but you cannot make sense of it, right? Unless somebody translates the language. That's exactly what I mean by this. So you gather data through checklist, through check sheets, through statistical sampling, through questionnaires, surveys. Then you perform some analysis on the data, and then you start to review with people and do some root cause analysis. You got all of this data coming in. Then you say, okay, which of this data is the right answer? You do some root cause analysis until you figure out this data piece and this data are the reason by which this failure is happening. This problem is happening. These are the root cause of this failure. And usually what you do is you draw this, and we'll show you that Ishikawa diagram, or let's see. Just keep root cause analysis is what are my causes for this problem. You may have multiple causes. What are those? And that's what data analysis is going to provide to you. Data representation is actually drawing it out, and we have different methods, and we're going to look at them today. Control charts, histogram, scatter diagram, and cause and effect diagram. See, when you talk about root causes, you're going to use cause and effect diagram, and we'll see that in this PowerPoint. Control charts, another way to describe data by looking at these charts and making sense of that data by looking at those charts. Histogram, another way to make sense of the data. So depending on what type of data you have, you can use any of these representation methods to display it, and then based on the display, you can make sense of it, make decisions about them. Other tools is inspection, testing, meeting. So what's important here? That you start with data, you collection, then you analyze it, then you represent it. Those are the three main steps. Gather, analyze, and represent. So we're going to focus on the representation just about now. All right, so this is the way we're going to represent data. So there's one method here, and it's called process flow diagram. And remember when we said we go through these initiation, planning, execution and control, and closing? That's a process, right? That's a process. We start with initiation, jump to planning, jump to execution, jump to then do monitor and control, then jump to closing. Just like here, you start here, go here. There's a decision point. You can go this way based on the decision, or you can go this way. And then you do this. Then there's another decision point, and then you make the final. And then you end. So this is a process flow diagram. Every time you go to see a doctor, you know that there's a process you're going through to see the doctor. You can draw that process in this fashion. And then you can figure out, hey, we don't want this step. Let's remove this step. We don't like this step because this step is taking too much time, making the patients wait longer than necessary. Check sheet is another a tool, a quality tool. You create a check sheet, just like go no go. Remember, we're gonna do a go no go before we go live. Go no go. We're gonna have a check sheet, and we're gonna say, was training done? Yes, it was done. Great. Was build done? Yes, build was done. Was testing done? Yes, testing was done. So this is what we're gonna use this tool for, a check sheet to do our go no go. Histogram. Histogram has two axes. This is the x-axis. This is the y-axis, and we can put on x-axis maybe a cause of this problem. Let's say something broke down, and we said, okay, so that's cause number 1. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 causes. And so let's see how many times this cause happened. And so this is, let's say this is 5, this is 7, this is 10. So the cause 1 happened 5 times, cause 2 happened 7 times, cause 3 happened 10 times. So we can sort of use this histogram to figure out which cause is the one we need to target and fix. So we say, oh, let's fix this one. It happened 10 times. If we can fix that cause, then maybe we can eliminate the issue, the problem. So this is another way by which we are displaying the data, right? Here we are going to gather, get the data, analyze it, and then display it. This is how we display it. And then based on the display, we can make sense of it. And this one is also very similar to histogram. The only difference I see here is that it's sort of sorted. You got the highest one first, then the second, then the third, then the fourth, and so forth. And this is sort of showing you that, again, you have both axes, and so it's a sorted list of, let's say, your issues, your causes. And then we have down here, you got a cause and effect diagram where you have a problem, which is in the front of it. Let's see where my... Okay, there we go. So this is the effect, and these are the causes. So there was traffic. The traffic was jammed. Okay, that's the problem. Traffic. One cause is the traffic light was down. The traffic light was down, so the traffic was jammed, or there was an accident So which is true? But that's the whole problem, right? You got to figure out what the real cause is for this problem. Once you figure that out by drawing it in a cause and effect diagram, it has a couple of different names also, this cause and effect diagram. I think it's also called Ishikawa diagram, and it's also called fishbone diagram. Fishbone. It looks like a fish, doesn't it? So the other one here is scatter diagram. Here you got data that's sort of, you plot the data X and Y, and then you draw a line through it to see if the data is trending. If the data is trending, is it trending up or is trending down? In this case, it's trending up, which means that the data is meaningful, something is happening, and with time, things are improving, right? It's improving from down here to down here. So scatter diagram is also a good way to describe the performance of, let's say, a solution. Let's see if we can draw out the data from this solution, from this machine, and see if the machine is improving over time, or whatever the case may be. And lastly, we have this control charts. This is an interesting one. Let's say you're working on some sort of system, and the system is fine when it's inside these limits. This is the upper limit, and this is the lower limit. When the system is inside this upper limit and lower limit, it's functioning great. But when it touches these limits right here and goes out of this limit, that means that's where the problems are. So if you can draw the flow and the performance of, let's say, some piece of machinery or some system, and be able to monitor it by these control charts, you would know at what time it goes crazy, it goes out of bound, it either crashes or shuts down, and so you know, hey, it happened right about here. What caused it? Then you can go back to cause and effect diagram, this one, and figure that out. And so this is another way by which you can describe the data, describe your quality metric. Are you staying within those limits or not, right? If you are within the right limits, that means your quality is good. But if you are going over or under, that means something is wrong with your quality, right? So these are the tools for data representation. This is another control chart right here, showing the same thing we discussed earlier. Again, cost of conformance, cost of non-conformance. Okay, go ahead, Lectris.
The kind of chart we use, is it based on the kind of project we're doing, or is it based on our preference of how we understand the data that we're collecting and analyzing?
Okay, yeah, it depends on the data and depends on the purpose. So let's say you're doing a no-go meeting, right? Before you push the implementation or deployment into production, you want to get people together and decide whether everyone is ready or not. So you want some sort of checklist, right? So you say, okay, so in the PMP exam, they're going to say, for your no-go meeting, what tool are you going to use? So you can say, what happens in a no-go meeting? We have to go through some checklists, right? So you will say check sheet. Check sheet is the right answer.
Okay.
Got it? So, or another problem may be highlighted in the exam. They may say you are trying to improve the process of your system, and you have drawn out the interaction between people and process. What would be a good tool if you know the people, if you know the system, to highlight any gaps, you could say process flow diagram, because that's where we another one could be, okay, you have all these reasons to determine the reason for this problem. What would be a good way to show that? You can say histogram. You see that? So you got to understand what each of these diagrams are sort of showing you, and then map it back to the problem. So, and the best way I think to learn about this would be to tackle the problems and see if you can sort of make sense of them by having these 6-7 QC quality control tools in your mind. Just make sure you understand these and see if you can map them to the problem. All right, so let's check the time before we continue. See, we haven't given you guys a break even, so it's 8:01. So let's take a 10-minute break, a quick 10-minute break, and then I'm going to let you read this on your own. This is a really good synopsis of what I just went through, all these 7 tools. It's going to give you the same information. So I'm not going to repeat that. QC, QA, we already done. So we're pretty much done with quality now. We're done. No more quality. We're going to go to a new chapter, which would be project cost management after we come back from this break. So let's take a break. We'll be back at 8:10. I hope everyone is ready. Everyone is back. Looks like I do see some of you have your video on. Okay, let's get moving here. Hope you enjoyed the first 2 hours. I don't know. I did. So let's see if you enjoy the next 1 hour. It's going to be a little tougher than the first 2 hours, but it wouldn't be that bad. Hopefully not. Let's see. All right, so we're going to talk about cost. Um, what is cost? And so let's look at the process of looking at cost. So this is one way to look at cost. That you got to plan cost, just like you plan anything, right? You got to plan your. When we talk about cost, they're talking about the budget. That's the bottom line. So when you talk about cost, your bottom line is budget. What is budget equal to? That's what this whole thing is about. What are the inputs, and then the tools, again, meeting, analysis, estimation, and estimation comes here. So first time is planning. How am I going to come to arrive at my budget numbers? So in order to do that, you have to estimate. And how are you going to estimate? This is the important stuff right here. Estimation methods. So in order to estimate, you got to first go through the requirements, right? In your planning, first step is requirement. From requirement, you get your scope statement, which is your juice. Did I mention the juice to anyone before? Scope statement is my juice. And the juice is when you squeeze the requirements, you get juice. And when you squeeze, you just keep what you need, and you remove what you don't need. So you keep your ins, and you state your outs, but you focus on your ins. So requirement is everything, 100%, right? We talked about that. When you squeeze the juice out of the oranges, you get the juice and you throw away the shells. And so you get down to about 80%, right? When you squeeze the juice from the oranges. So think of that. Your scope statement is the juice. And then from the juice, you get your WBS. Right? And once you get your WBS, then you decompose it. You decompose it. If this was if this was the house, then you got the electrical here, you got the plumbing here, you got the framework here, you got the what else we got there in the house? Everything. There's so much in the house. Roof.
Floors.
You got the floors, whatever.
Windows.
So you got all of that here. Then you decompose, and then you break it down. When you decompose, you break it down into activities. The very bottom activity, this up to this point here is the work package. Is a work package. Now, you got this, right? This is your WBS, your secret sauce. This is your secret sauce. This was your juice, and this was your oranges. Oranges were on the top. You got your juice, and now from the juice, you create your secret sauce. And that's what it looks like. Now you need to estimate the cost, because you got to know the components, all of the components, right? It's very difficult to estimate cost when you're looking at this level. This is your level 1 right here. This is your level 1, LV1. This is your level 2. This is your level 3, and so forth. At level 1, this is your top down. Right here is your top down. to calculate the cost at this level is, you can do that, but it won't be accurate. And that's what, this doesn't even have a top down here. Okay. And then this level here, which is your lowest level, your work package level, this is your bottom level. So bottom up means you go to the smallest element, task, and then you estimate by adding all of these until you reach level 1. So you aggregate. You aggregate the cost, and this is how you know how much your project is going to cost you. And so if you look at the tools here, tools and techniques here, you got the analogous. So the top analogous is the top down. Then you got the 3 point. 3 point is the somewhere in the middle. Oh, I'm sorry. Then you got the parametric. You got the parametric, which is like the mid estimation method. This, and then you got a 3 point / bottom up. This is the most accurate way to estimate, the bottom up 3 point method. And so that's how you aggregate, and you get a sum of all your tasks, and how much each task is going to take, which means it has the cost of people and equipment, right? And when you talk about people, we're talking about contractors, we're talking about your IT people, internal resources. Contractors are your external resources. Equipment is what you need, right, to build. And that's what we really focus on, plus your contingency. That's your budget. This other stuff which is here called the reserved analysis. So reserve analysis. So you could say contingency could be part of that. And there's another thing called managed reserve. That is something that is not part of your budget, but can be given to you in case you run out of your budget, which is this. Then you can get some more money when you go through what we call reforecasting. Reforecasting is when you need more money and you have to request from your sponsors. All right, so and then determine budget. Okay, after you decompose down, then you can aggregate and determine your budget. And then you have to figure out the basis of estimate. That's kind of important. What are my basis for how I'm estimating? And you can say my basis are that I am decomposing and I'm adding up from bottom up. 3 point, I'm using a 3 point estimation method, or adding from bottom up. And that's how I can say for sure that my budget is accurate, because I'm not doing it top down or analogous or top down. So cost of quality, you're going to put that in there, cost of quality, which should be part of your task, right? As you're estimating, the quality is built into your product, right? So it's sort of built in there. You don't have to sort of separate the quality cost. It's in there. Based on the quality of the product, the skill set that you are procuring, your contractors, their quality of work, right? You're getting expensive contractors, not high-paid contractors. So the quality is kind of built in. So basis is the output when you do your estimation, basis for your project budget. And once you get the budget, you then come up with a cost baseline. You come up with a cost baseline once you aggregate all of these tasks, which includes people cost, equipment cost, and in people cost you have contractors cost, and you also have the solution cost, the cost of the solution, plus the solution cost. That's also in your budget, right? People, equipment, and the solution. If you're going to a third-party vendor, and the vendor is giving you an application, then the cost of that application is also part of your budget. All right, this is a good high-level overview. Let's do a little bit in depth now. All right, so total budget components. So I said you're going to have the cost baseline, right? Now, this management reserve is not part of your budget. Your contingency reserve is. So even though it has all of these, I would not get confused. Work package, your package stuff here. Control accounts are sort of embedded in here. These are sort of embedded in here. I will leave the management reserve sort of outside the budget because that's that's external. Contingency budget is internal. Is part of the budget. So I would not really. So that's all I'm going to take from there. The one here, it shows you your cost baseline, which is this line here, and then all the extra money that you're getting. This is the extra stuff. This is coming from your management reserve. This is extra stuff. But this is your cost baseline. This is what you agreed upon. You got from your, it's called BAC, budget as at estimation. BAC, budget at estimation. When you add on this extra stuff, if you run out of money and you want to dip into your management reserves, that's called estimate at completion. So you start with BSC, budget at completion, and when you keep reforecasting and adding additional dollars, you end up with ESC, estimate at completion. Okay, so keep those in mind. Budget at completion is your budget that you get when you start the project. But when there's a scope change, and you say, you know what, I messed up, I need more money, fine. Because you messed up, you are. It's not part of your contingency. It was something that you didn't account for. You're gonna go dip into your management reserve, which are these dashes here, and then it'll get added to your budget, and so that would be called now an ESC. Now that you've added this extra stuff, you no longer have your BSC, which was your baseline budget when you started off, when you did your calculation, decomposing and aggregation, and you came up with a number that was your budget. But then, as you went into execution phase, started to procure, start paying bills, and then there was a workaround because something broke down. You asked for more money. Now your budget is no longer called BSC, now it's being called ESC because you've added more to your initial budget. Now it's called estimate at completion because they'll keep changing. Your baseline was one budget. Now as you keep adding more, your ESCs are going to be your new budget. It will be called estimate at completion. It will not longer be called BSC, budget at completion. I hope that's clear. Okay, so few definitions here. What do you mean by variable cost? What do you mean by fixed cost? What do you mean by direct cost? And what do you mean by indirect cost? And the examples are here. A variable cost example is material, supplies, wages. Remember that. Fixed cost like setup cost, rental, etc. These are fixed cost, non-occurring costs that do not change as production changes. Fixed cost. And then you got direct cost, team travel, team wages, recognition, cost of materials used on the project. So that's called direct cost. This is something that is most of your stuff is in here in the direct cost. This fixed cost and variable cost is very small amounts. So we don't even think about it, but from a definition standpoint, you got to know what they are. Indirect costs are taxes, fringe benefits, janitorial. We don't even worry about that either in a project. We just work on these, but from a definition standpoint, you got to know what indirect cost is. That is taxes, fringe benefits, and janitorial services. So remember these examples to understand what a fixed cost is, to understand what a variable cost is, and there's some definitions here also. But direct cost is what when I said what is your budget, all the stuff that goes inside there, for the most part, is the direct cost, and that's what the other stuff here is obviously important. The variable costs, obviously, the wages and all that is important. So this also is important. I should give that some credit also. Variable costs and direct costs. These two. I'm sorry. These two, not just direct, but variable and direct. So in case you have you ran out of money and you're trying to complete the project and not ran out of budget, you're running low on budget. So you could look at your direct cost and see what you can cut. Can I cut team travel? Maybe so. Can I cut team wages? Maybe not. Recognition, maybe yes. Cost of materials, not. So you can probably cut team travel and recognition from the direct cost if you're running low on budget. On the variable side, if you're running low on budget, you can cut on supplies, maybe, wages, maybe. But so it looks like mostly on the direct, you can do some cutting here, but I don't think on the variable side you can cut anything. The material you need, supplies you need, wages you need. So keep those things in mind from that aspect. There may be questions saying, hey, the project is running low on budget. Should I cut direct cost or should I cut variable cost? The answer should be try direct first and then variable second. Okay, so what's in this chapter? In this chapter, you have about 18 things to know. Where did I get this? Let's go to the cost chapter. What page is that?
229.
229, thank you. 229. All right, if you go to 229, let me write this down here. 229, you will find this on the right hand side, and it's called quick test. This is your quick test. Make sure you understand this. So we're going to go through some of those things. The thing that's most important here is right here. This number 18. Rest is all concepts, definitions. You already know what bottom up means. You already know what top down means. This is new. This is new stuff. Earned value, cost aggregation. You already know that. That's what you do to get your budget, right? Budget is you do cost aggregation. How do you calculate budget for an adaptive project? Adaptive is equal to agile. ROM, rough order of magnitude, minus 25 to plus 75. This is almost like top down, almost equivalent to analogous. Budget is and then there's budget and there's definitive. Budget is like in between these are the like, how accurate are you from a budgetary standpoint? You are not accurate here, a little bit accurate, most accurate. This guy here, most accurate. All right, so let's quickly go through this. So again, you plan, you estimate, you come up with your budget, then you control your budget. That's the process. Cost test. So earned value versus analysis. how well the project is doing compared to its performance measurements, baseline, cost, schedule, scope. So when we talk about the cost performance, we obviously are going to look at the budget and we're going to compare it with the baseline. And baseline is usually your BAC, right? That's your baseline budget. So you're just going to make sure that your actuals is how much you actually spent versus the budget. Actual versus the budget. So if the budget had $100 and you actuals you spend $95 and you budget at $100, that means you are plus 5. If you spend 105 and your budget is 100, then your variance is minus 5. Which is better, plus 5 or minus 5?
Plus 5.
Plus 5. So variance is how we measure the performance of your budget. How am I varying? Am I varying positively or am I varying negatively? So keep that in mind. You compare, how much actuals I have spent versus how much BAC I had. So let me just write this down here. This is my BAC. All right, so let's keep going. So we did talk about the types of cost: variable, fixed, direct, and indirect. Variable, material, supplies, fixed, this. Okay, we went through that. This was the estimation method, number 2 here. This is your ROM estimate, minus 25 to plus 75, budget minus 10 to plus 25, and definitive minus 5 to plus 10. So this is the sort of the most accurate variance. This is your variance. So keep those numbers in mind. ROM stands for rough order of magnitude. Okay. Right, so now we come to the budget, cost aggregation. That's where the budget comes from. You add it all up, you add up all this. So budget, this is the important sheet here. Budget is equal to contingency plus budget. Budget is, all the people, the contractor, the solution, all of that stuff I said. Now, contingency, what do we mean by contingency? So let's say you come up with $100,000 as your budget through your bottom-up estimation method, bottom-up or three-point method. You come up with $100,000 as your budget. You can add to that about 10% on top of that as a contingency. Contingency means safety. Like $10,000. So in case you go over the budget, you have that contingency in there to help you, right? If you are under, no problem. You'll surrender what you didn't spend. You're going to surrender it. So that's why it's good to have a contingency built into your budget. So for even though it's 5 to 10%, right? 5 to 10% would be good. Now, if you were doing adaptive, which is agile, you will have a burn rate. How much money am I burning every day? In an agile, you have, what do you have? You have 2 to 4 weeks. Every day you're spending money. Every day you're spending money, right? How much are you spending per day? I'm spending, let's say I'm spending $10,000 per day. And you have, let's say, a project that's going to last you 2 weeks. So that means you have 10 days. That means, you're going to end up spending 100K because you're burning $10,000 every day. So for Agile, that's how you sort of manage. What's my burn rate? You'll hear this. What's my burn rate? Your burn rate is going to be, how much you're burning per day. By burning, I mean how much are you spending per day? How much expense you're incurring per day? That's what burn rate means. Okay. Now we're getting to the part that's all calculations. So this is where I'm going to go to another. Yeah, let's go to the book first. So in the book, on page, let's see, starting on page 239, where it says earn value management. So let's write this down. Page 239. Earned value management. It starts to talk about what is earned value and how do we calculate earn value. First of all, why do we need earned value? What is earned value? We need earned value to control and monitor the budget variance. We're looking at how the budget is varying from the mean. So you have the actuals, right? You have the actuals and you have the budget and you're doing a subtraction and coming up with a variance. And that's what you're sort of managing. And earned value is another way to tell your sponsors, tell your stakeholders, whether you are in terms of the schedule. You look at two things. You look at the cost, or which is your budget. You look at that, and you look at the schedule. Are you on track or off track? On track or off? And that's represented by SPI. Schedule Performance Index, SPI. Schedule Performance Index. And then the cost or budget, how the budget is performing, you monitor that with the CPI, Cost Performance Index. So let's add those here, CPI and SPI. And there's a formula for all of these things here. So we're going to look at that, page 241. So the formulas are on page 241. Everyone, let's see if I have them here also. I may have it here too. Here. Yeah, so right here. So CPI is equal to EV, earned value, divided by actual cost. Okay, so this is the formula for CPI. Earned value, and you have to memorize these. In the exam, you may have one or couple of questions on this. Not a whole lot of them, but so you got to at least know what these are. So CPI is earned value, and we'll do some problems, so no worries. Okay, earned value divided by actual cost. Actual cost. We'll look at what do we mean by actual cost. But for right now, let's go through the formulas here, which are on page 241. These are the important ones. CPI is how am I doing in terms of the cost? And if you look at this right here, if CPI is greater than 1, when you do this, CPI we said was earned value divided by planned value, right? I'm sorry, actual cost, AC. Earned value divided by AC. If the number you get, if it is greater than 1, that means you are earning more than spending, which means you're positive. That means that's good. That you're doing well budget-wise. If you get the earned value, you find the earned value, divide by actual cost, and if it's greater than 1, that means you're doing well, budget-wise. So if it's less than 1, that means if you are earning less than the spending. In other words, you are over budget, negative. Okay, and then if it's equal, that means you are at budget. Okay, so keep this in mind. Similarly, for SPI, if it's greater than 1, you're good. If it's less than 1, you're not good. You are off track schedule-wise, on track, off track, and is on schedule. So those are some of the parameters you have to monitor to control your, not to control, just to monitor whether you are on schedule or not. Are you on budget or not? And so we'll do some problems to highlight these concepts. But for right now, just make sure you the formulas on page 241. You memorize some of them. CPI is earned value divided by actual cost, and then SPI is earned value divided by planned value, and we'll look at those actual cost and planned value, these. And then schedule variance, how are you varying earned value minus planned value? And for okay, let's look at the book. Everyone, does everyone have the book? Who doesn't have the book? Who didn't bring the book or doesn't have the book? Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I have something else to show you. So give me a few minutes. I want to pull up something else so we can do that instead. And I may send that over to you guys. Just give me a second here. Now we're going to do some problems. To illustrate these things that which I just talked about. Oh, not those problems. Just 1 second. Okay, hold on. Reporting cost, PMP. This one. Oh yeah, I got it here. Okay, so let's go back here. Share my screen. So what I'm going to show you is what's it's also on page 241. And so let's do this. And it's not very difficult, so don't get too confused here. All right. So this is not exactly what's on page 241, but this is another sheet that shows about the same thing. So let's look at first concept is, so get my pencil to work here. Oh, it's not working. 1 second. Okay, anyways, I'm going to just talk through it. So first one is budget at completion, BAC. And it's nothing but, like I said earlier, it's the original budget, BAC. Next concept is planned value, PV. and it's the amount of money worth of work that should have been done on the project. This is, if you planned that we're going to complete this house in 5 days, and we are on day, let's say 6 days, and we are on day 3, that means we should have done 50% of the house, completion of the house. The plan value should have been 50% if we are on day 3, right? If the house, this is all hypothetical. Obviously, I'm just giving an example. House obviously cannot be completed in 3 days, but 6 days. But let's for this example, let's say the house is supposed to be completed in 6 days. Okay, keep 6 days in mind. So the planned value is going to be 6 days. We're going to complete it in 6 days. If we are on day 3, that means we should have completed 50% of the house. So the planned value would be 50% of the budget, right? Because we are on day 3, and we said we are completing the project in 6 days. So we're going to divide the 6 days over the 100K, if that's the budget. And then we can, and that's how we know how much the planned value is going to be. Earned value is the amount of money worth of work you actually did on the project. So this is different from the planned value. Earned value is, for example, hey, I'm this house is going to get completed in 6 days. I've done 30%. You've done 30% of the house. That means your earned value is going to be 30% of the budget. But that's what I said. I said I've completed 30% of the house, so your earned value is going to be 30% of the budget. So the budget is 100K. 30% of 100K is going to be $30,000. So my earned value is $30,000. On the other hand, if you said I have completed 3 days worth of work, that means your planned value is going to be 50% of 100K, about $50,000, right? It's 3 days of work. That means half of the work, and that's going to be $50,000, the planned value. Earned value can only be assessed when you say I've completed a certain percentage of the work. I said 30%, okay, 30% of the work, that means 30% times 100K is $30,000. So just hopefully that's clear. And then actual cost is how much money I actually spent. Amount of work you already spent on the project. None, just the amount already spent on the project. So that's the actual cost. Keep that in mind. Cost variance is going to be identified by this formula: earned value minus actual cost. Once you know the earned value, once you know the actual cost, you just subtract and you get your cost variance. And negative value indicates over budget. Okay, negative value indicates over budget, which is true because we looked at the SPI, CPI earlier, and we said anything negative is bad, anything positive is good. The CPI is that's what we talked about earlier. Is the formula for that is EV over AC. EV divided by AC. You should come up with a fraction, and if it's less than 1, it's negative. It's greater than 1, it's positive. Schedule variance is SV is EV minus PV, planned value, and again positive, negative. Schedule performance index SPI is equal to EV divided by PV, and you get a fraction plus or minus. EAC, like I said, EAC is anything you spend above and beyond your budget, BAC. So BAC is your budget. EAC is something that came out of your management reserve, above and beyond your budget. And there's a formula for that also. EAC is equal to BAC divided by CPI, right? We had CPI up above here. CPI was EV over AC, so EAC is going to be BAC divided by CPI. And then estimate to completion This is something if you try to forecast the amount that we needed to complete the current budget based on current performance. There's a formula for that. ETC is called ETC is equal to EAC minus AC. So once you know the basics, you can calculate all the other formulas below. And that's pretty much all there is to it. So you got to know these formulas, and that's really the only formulas that you really need to know in project management. There may be one or two others. Yeah, there are probably one or two more that you have to know, but that's a two more plus this. That's the total amount of formulas you'll have to know for your PMP. So and now let's look at some examples. So yeah, see, I couldn't use my pen because it was. Now I can kind of show you this stuff here. So okay, that's good. So I think we know that it's so all of this stuff that's on this sheet of paper is on page 241, and let's try to do an example. I'm not going to make this larger because if I do, I cannot use my pen. So can you all read what's on the sheet here? If you cannot, I think it's okay. I can sort of do it here. So what this problem is this is scenario one. And what this problem is saying, you're installing a fence in your house. You're installing a fence in your house, and the project has a budget of $100. So your BAC is $100. Okay, and your total time duration is 5 days to complete building this fence in your backyard. You are on the third day. And the project has completed 75%. And the project team has completed 75% of the work, 75% of the project, and has spent $70. $70. 70% has been completed, and they have spent $70 out of the $100. So whenever something is spent, this is your actual cost, AC. Okay. Now, when they say 75% completed, which means your earned value is equal to 75% times the budget, which is equal to 75.75 times 100, which is $75. Am I good so far? I'm going to see some thumbs up.
I had no idea we was gonna have to do math.
This is the extent of your math, okay? This is the only math that you have to know. This one and another formula that is the channel. How many channels in communication, which is coming up next week or so. There's a formula. I'm going to write it up here. The channel, how many channels you need, you can have in a project depends on n minus 1 divided by 2, something like that. So that'll be another formula that you'd have to know. And then there's one more, I think, I'm forgetting. There's one more formula, but this is the extent of what you need to know. So that's it. This chapter cost has some earned value stuff that. Oh yeah, let me see. Yeah, it's not that bad. I know it's. I know you see. Well, to tell you the truth, when I took the PMP, I don't remember them asking me to compute anything. Okay, when I first took my PMP like 12 years ago, there were all these formulas. I had to do the calculation. there were plenty of formulas. I mean, this formulas from here, from this chapter. There was some formulas from schedule chapter. There was formulas from. You will get this formula from communication, so that you probably still get it, or maybe not. So because I didn't use the calculator at all, and I was not given any paper. I had to go there at the center and take the exam. But as far as I remember, there was no formulas that I had to plug in to get a number out of it. Okay, but because the first exam that I did, there's a question: are calculators allowed? Yes, calculators are allowed. They will give you they'll give you a calculator, or there's a calculator on the app itself that you can use. But as far as I remember, when I took this exam a couple of months ago, there was hardly any calculation that I can remember. But in case one or two come up in your PMP exam out of somewhere, you should be prepared. Okay? And so just to be safe, you should be prepared. And that's why we're doing it. Because what I found out this time was that everything was so situational. Everything was almost 100% was situational. There was hardly any calculation that I had to do. In the first time when I took the exam, there was, like I said, there were quite a few where I had to, actually compute to solve. But this time they weren't. So, but I'm not guaranteeing that you will not get any. I mean, I cannot guarantee for sure. Okay, but from my recent experience, I didn't come across any. So if you heard that there are not going to be any formulas, you may be right. But I don't want to take that risk. Do you?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. So let's just do it. It's and once you understand this, it's not that difficult. All right. So we figured out how to do the earned value. It depends on this statement. How much was completed? You multiply it by the BAC, which is your budget, and you get your answer. You get your earned value. Your actual cost, they'll give you your actual cost. Now you got your AC and you got your EV. Knowing these two, you can calculate something. Now, what is that something? Okay, let's go look at this. So if you know the EV and AC CPI, you can calculate CPI. So let's do the CPI. So knowing those two, you can calculate CPI is equal to EV over AC. So you can calculate that EV is 75, AC is 100. It's 0.75, right?
Yes.
So now you can calculate your SPI. SPI is
Excuse
EV.
me, Professor, but there you above have that you said AC is equals 70. And now in formula you have AC 100.
Oh, hold on a second. I'm confused. Okay, so you're right. You're absolutely right. Where's AC? Okay, there we go. So it's 70. So 70 over 75, whatever the number is, that's the CPI. Okay. Thank you for pointing me in the right direction. SPI is EV over PV, right? Planned value, and this would be. Let's look at this. So BAC is 100, right? BAC is 100. PV is going to be, I think they're giving you 3 days, right? 3 days, 3 days. So if you have 5 days, so if you have 5 days, right? So 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus 20 plus 20, that's 100. So 3 days is $60, right? So $60. So PV is $60. So your SPI is equal to EV, which is 75, over PV, which is 60, and that's your SPI. So you calculate CPI, SPI. So we got PV done. This is 60. we got BAC, which is 100. Your EV, we said it's 75% of BAC, which is $75, which is right here. So we got that. AC, we said it's 3 days, so it's $60. So it is, I'm sorry, AC is $70. So AC is $70. It's given to us. And then PV is $60. We got all of that done. And then CV is cost variance. So CV is equal to EV minus, let's see what the formula is. So cost variance is EV minus AC. EV minus AC, we know EV is $75. AC is $70. So it's $5. And your SV is EV minus PV. So EV is 75. PV is 60. You get $15. Okay, so see, it wasn't difficult, was it? You just had, so your BSc was given to you, your duration was given to you, your 70% was complete. From there, you calculated your EV. Yes, Azim.
I understand the logic of this, but I don't understand how do we come up with PV and with the hold on a second, what was that? With the planned value coming to
Okay.
60. My question is, if the planned or if the overall cost of the project budget was 100 and then they accomplished it, let's say in 3 days, and they have spent a certain amount of money, why do we think that every day they have the equal amount of money spent?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. And so you have to make that assumption, Azim. You have to make that assumption is that you are planning an equal amount per day. And that's an assumption we're going to make in these problems. You won't say that in one day, $10, another day it's going to be, $30. And so total will still be 40, but less in one day and more in the other day, unless they tell you specifically in the problem. If they don't tell you that specifically in the problem, then you're going to assume that equal amount was spent per day. So you take the total amount and you say how many days, and then you divide it up. Okay? So
Yeah,
total was
okay.
100. And so 3 days, they did some work in 3 days. So 3 days means $20 per day. 3 days means $60. 20, 20, 20.
Okay.
It's planned.
Okay, so that's planned. And so that's how you get your PV. So we talked about the EV. They give you the percentage. For EV, they'll give you a percentage complete. So you take that percentage and you multiply it by BAC, you get your EV. So they will give you that. If they don't give you that, you cannot solve the problem. And as far as the actual cost is concerned, they will give you the actual cost because there's no other way you'll know that. So they will, in this case, they gave you the actual cost as where is it? As $70. So they gave you actual cost as $70. That's how you know it. Given these three, you can calculate, you can plug in the equations and calculate the rest of the stuff. So so that's the extent of the complexity here. So it's really not that hard. The only thing hard is to understand how to attack EV. How am I going to calculate EV? Well, if they give you a percentage completed, you take that percentage multiplied by BAC, which we did here, to get your EV. But this is something you have to sort of keep in back of your mind. You need to know, you look for the percentage in the problem. How much percent was completed? So that's something you have to look in the problem for. So that's how you're going to solve that one. Yeah, and that's pretty much it. So this is a good example to illustrate how you apply these concepts to come up with these numbers. Really, what you're looking for is the CPI and the SPI, and this is what it will tell you whether the project is on track or off track. Budget-wise, this is for the budget, and this is for the schedule. Okay, so if again, and all of that is in my other PowerPoint where I said if it's greater than 1, it's a good thing. So if it's greater than 1, that is budget-wise you're good. If it's less than 1, budget-wise you're bad. In schedule, if it's greater than 1, you're good. If it's less than 1, you're bad. So the question that they're going to ask you in the exam is, okay, so your SPI is less than 1, that's bad. What are you going to do about it? Your CPI is greater than 1, that's good. So there's nothing you can do about it. But if it's less than 1, how are you going to fix your budget? You know, that's the kind of question they're going to ask you. They're going to give you a CPI, SPI numbers, positive or negative, or less than 1 or greater than 1, and then ask you, so given these options, which one are you going to select to solve this problem? And that's the kind of problems you're going to find mostly in the exam, and that's what we're going to go over, in the book or online. Now, this problem that's here could be posed in the PMP exam, but based on what I've seen in my own personal experience, that they are trying to not ask questions where you have to calculate, but given some numbers, you have to make some decisions, right? So given a CPI, SPI, make some decisions. How are you gonna resolve this? How are you going to make sure that you stay positive, budget-wise and schedule-wise? And that's what we're going to tackle in the exam. All right, so I think that was a good introduction to this. Let's go back to, I'm not going to do any more. Let's go back and complete our chapter. And that's really what it's all about. So it's 9 o'clock. So we are almost done here. What we're going to do is I want you to do the problems that are online, and I will send you, remind me if I don't, I'm going to send you the problems that are in the book. I'm going to make a copy of that and send to all of you. I want you to try on your own. And then on Monday of next week, we are going to, the first 30 minutes, we're going to quickly go through those and make sure you are in good shape. And do the problems also for the quality. For the quality chapter, do the both problems, and we will take up some of them in the class on Monday while we continue to work on new chapters. And I think we're going to be done. The day you missed, we're going to make sure that we cover that material. I don't think you're going to miss anything. We'll still be left with a couple of days spare. We have a contingency built into this 8 weeks for these kind of situations. So we still will be left with a couple of days of work, of time. And even worst case scenario, we will be doing some learning during the final. We may not have a final, okay? Depending on how I feel. I will instead of a final, I will instead be doing reviews of concepts. I'll come up with all the different concepts, and I'm going to tell everyone, okay, go through that and tell me which concept you cannot check off. So we'll do a check sheet of concepts, and I'm going to distribute that to all 6 or 7 of you. You do your yes and no, and wherever you say no, that's the one we're going to review and make sure you are able to check that off as yes. Okay. So and I want those sheets back, and that could be your final. Send me back your sheets saying that you know all of that stuff. Okay. So that is going to be a tough call on you to make sure you can check off on every concept that's in this book. But I need to know that. All right. So any questions thus far? Okay, good, good,
I
good.
haven't.
Let's
I
stop
haven't.
here.
I'm
And
sorry.
yeah,
I haven't received the email that you sent. You sent us at the beginning of the class. So I just
oh,
checked my email. I haven't received that. I have only the old
no, I
email.
didn't send anything in the beginning of the class. I did update the this PowerPoint, in the beginning of this class. So, but I will send you. I sent everyone actually, Azim, the problems that are on this sheet. I'm going to send you this one so you can review this, and I'm also going to send you the well, I did send the procurement already. That was a couple of days ago. Azim, check your
Oh,
email. A
okay.
couple of days ago, I did send something. A
Is
couple of
it
days ago.
procurement problems?
Yeah, that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm going to also. I haven't added any spreadsheet recently beyond just this PowerPoint. I'll see if we can give you some more problems from the chapter that we're working on as well. So I'll work on those over this weekend. On when you come back, we will look at those. All right. So I think I'm going to stop here, and all of you do the problems